So Miriam and Stella, I will need some time to set it up. So you need to say some words at the beginning.
Okay. I'll give you a welcome. Stella is always welcome to jump in. So very warm welcome to all of you who are here now. We appreciate you being here. And yeah, just know that this will be recorded and streamed. So in case you want to have a video off, we have that option. And it's a very warm welcome to our third Cortona Pearl. More about that we'll hear from Luigi a little later on. Today's speaker is Dr. Susan Eyrich from the Earth Fire Institute, Idaho, in the United States. And Susan will share with us good vibrations about reawakening our bond with our wild earth. And so, Luigi, do you quickly want to say hello? So we see you because you're the father of everything. And after the sigla, you'll share a bit more about Cortona Pearls, but just to acknowledge you being here.
Whatever. Let me say just hello to all our friends all over the world. Cortona Week with Cortona Friends is still sending around this message of multidisciplinarity and systemic vision with the old principle of science and the various aspects of life. Today we will have a very beautiful aspect of life to that somebody will introduce later on. Our main hero today is Susan Eyrich. And let me tell also thanks to our conductor today, Miriam, who will introduce her and take us through the meanders of the various phases of this pearl. And with that, thanks again to Susan, thanks again to you, Miriam, and thanks again to all people who are listening and looking at us. Have 90 minutes of enjoyment.
Thank you to the team too. It's important to be said. It's always a lot of people coming together for something like that. So those of you who are here already, we would like to set the tone in a way that the word vibration may be felt, hopefully. So please enjoy a short sharing of Susan's work, Susan's passion, and really take these 2 minutes of Stigla, of welcome, for settling in, for feeling into, and please feel all warmly welcomed. Please, Matteo, share the screen and please enjoy for 2 minutes. Yeah, letting this reverberate for a few breaths. And before we invite Susan to share more about what is behind all that, what they maybe just have felt in this moment just by listening and seeing this tiny piece, I would like to invite Luigi to share a little bit, because these are the Cortona pearls in this year following the Cortona week. Please, Luigi, share a bit of this treasure that you and many have created.
What do you want me to say?
What people would love to hear, to know what Cortona Friends and Cortona Week and now Cortona Pearls are about. What connects us here, why we are here.
It's a long story, and of course I cannot tell the story of over 35 years in a few seconds, but it was born in order to provide people a new perspective of life, mostly through close relation with each other. Thanks also to the charismatic master who could show with their way of life that there are other perspectives of life, a life full of the many things, and not only by the mask of professionality. And during these 35 years, we have done a lot of these new perspectives, giving people really a new orientation for life, with the ambitious idea. This is perhaps too ambitious, but it's good to have a big aim in mind, to create a new generation of world leaders of the world, who are able to see the problems of our world, from ecology to the loss of biodiversity to the various problem of our atmospheres, in terms of a systemic view where all problem depends in a way from all the other. There is a chain of events which are interconnected, so as to have this vision which permits us a very important things, perhaps not the solution to the problem, but at least the awareness of what is going on. And awareness of what is going on of the present is certainly the basis from which we can start to have and see a possible systemic solution to this problem. And we will keep with this pearl, and whatever comes with the next months and year, to pursue this idea of having what we call a transformation learning, transformation teaching, with the hope of transforming in better the consciousness, the horizon of people for what we can do. I think I'll stop here.
Thank you, Luigi. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for all of you who are here. And there's so many who were in the past and who will see it. So just acknowledging that too, that you all make Cortona and will make it in the future, of course. So there's a vision that you hopefully may be feeling after our pearl here today. Yeah, so our main speaker, Susan, she will share with us now during 20 minutes her work, vision, passion. I'll briefly say something about the format that we have come up with for 90 minutes, so you know where you are located. After Susan's talk of 20 minutes, we'll invite into breakout groups. This means into small dialogue rooms. I'll name the invitation, the question for your little group before we started. We'll come back then, and there'll be a musical piece to be enjoyed again in the spirit of Cortona. We'll then move into a Q&A, plenary session, where hopefully you have brought back questions from the small rooms to Susan. And we'll end again with enjoying music. So the arts are present here, and the small rooms hopefully connect a little bit to the Cortona spirit, where we connect on a personal level and get to know each other. Also for the leisure part, the dance, the music, the arts, because it's important to really be human and feel each other next to the knowledge part. So, Susan, there's very brief words to say, because I think you'll say it for yourself too. Susan is the founder and executive director of Earth Fire Institute in Idaho. You'll see what that landscape is about while we are right now on the screens and not close to you. You're a licensed psychologist, biologist, and educator, and have taught around the world. Yeah, and I'll just let you share your vision and your work. And we are very honored to have you here. And you are in your space. We may hear some wolves howling in the back. We had that in the preparation. So very warm welcome, Susan. And please share your screen for your presentation. Please all enjoy Susan's presentation.
Thank you, everybody. For me, it's an utter privilege to be with such wonderful, warm, brilliant people who are trying our human best to do what we can. It's just a privilege. So reawakening our bond with the wild earth, what I want to do is share with you some of the, not that we don't know it, but to remind us of the incredible beauty and wonder that's around us, and that sometimes we get lost and don't see it, and how much better off we would all be if we did. That's Windwalker and my partner Jean. It's me, and that's actually Earthfire the wolf over there. We're located very briefly in the Yellowstone to Yukon Wildlife Corridor. This is Idaho. We're right on the border of Yellowstone National Park and part of a wildlife corridor where life can flow that goes all the way up to the Yukon. This is my backyard in the winter. That's the Grand Teton. That's Earthfire the wolf, and that's not digital. She actually was howling because we can get them to howl at will. This is my little writing cabin. So, my way of thinking of things, life recognizes other life instinctively, and that life exults in life. And to solve our ecological crises, we need to connect deeply and fall in love with other life forms. And connection opens channels through which flows information, strength, and healing, leading to creative, practical solutions. I'm going to share this with you. Many of you will have seen it. And I can't see the... I think I'm not going to be able to show that. So we just have a technical issue here where we transferred to another format, and I think we can't show the video. So this video is called My Octopus Teacher, and many of you will probably have seen it. Is there any way to fix that at this point? Because we won't be able to show any of the videos. If we closed out and reopened in Google Slides. Matteo, should we close out and go in Google Slides so we can show the videos because they're important? Or should I just continue?
So I would, you can try to unshare your screen and go on Google Slides, and then that may work.
Okay. So now I'm going to go to, sorry, everybody.
So you just take your time. We're here. We're with you. And we want to see those beautiful videos.
I want you to see the videos.
I know.
And we did do a test before. So these are the pangs, the wonders and pangs of live streaming.
So Matteo, should I share screen now? Can you see it?
Yes, can you share now?
Please also check the sound. Yeah.
We'll share screen.
You have to escape.
So we're sharing wilderness with
We'll share
Susan,
screen.
being with her.
And then this one.
This one.
Thank you so much.
Do what?
Present. There you go.
Thank you, Anne. Perfect.
Given that Anne is completely untechnological and panics at the thought of anything like that, you really need to thank her.
I remember the day when it all started, seeing this really strange thing. A lot of people say an octopus is like an alien. But the strange thing is, as you get closer to them, you realize that we're very similar in a lot of ways. It's a hard thing to explain, but sometimes you just get a feeling and you know there's something to this creature that's very unusual. There's something to learn here. I had to have a radical change in my life. And the only way I knew to do it was to be in this ocean with her. And then I had this crazy idea. What happens if I just went every day? That there's a line that can't be crossed. I hadn't been a person that was overly sentimental towards animals before. I realized I was changing. My relationship with people, with humans, was changing. What she taught me was to feel that you're part of this place, not a visitor. That's a huge difference.
How do I go to the next? It's not.
You want to move to the next slide?
Yeah.
Okay. And then go to present.
Where in that present? So, Craig Foster just was diving the first time, and he just felt being attracted to something. And that's an interesting question to begin with. What was the presence that he was tuning to? What was that pull? How did this change how he related to people? And from here, he began to understand the whole kelp forest mind. And from the deep connection he made, the deep connection with this octopus over the year of her life, it moved into action. So from deep connection into profound action, he now founded something called Sea Change Project about kelp forests around the world. And the overall theme of this talk is going to be how deep connection helps us move to action. This is from Jill Robinson of Animals Asia.
The damp, the dark, that mournful sound. I sensed a movement, a touch on my shoulder, and I turned around, and there she was, a bear reaching out through her cage towards me. Without thinking, I took her paw. It was the most reckless thing I've ever done, and I felt her paw, squeezed my hand. I can still feel the touch of her claws on my fingers, as if she was saying, please, please help me. And that first encounter on a bear bar farm changed everything. She was the reason I started Animals Asia. And now we're on the cusp of ending bear bar farming forever in Vietnam.
Okay, I'm having
The damp, the dark, that mournful sound.
on.
I sensed a movement. A touch on my shoulder, and I turned around, and there she was, a bear reaching out through her.
At least. Oh, we should not have changed the PowerPoint. I just need to move on, and you don't know how.
Well, I don't know why this one's still showing.
Should I just go over here? Can you try going over here?
Okay, and then we need to find present.
I think we'll just leave it the way it is.
No, we don't want to see those slides.
It's fine, given what we... So sorry for the technology, because we changed from Google Slides to PowerPoint and it's not working properly. The thing that happened with Jill is, again, the profound connection. What was happening was she went to see them because of bear bile farming in the basement. A reporter invited her there, and suddenly she felt a touch on her shoulder. The bear reached and she turned around and grabbed her paw. The bear was asking for help. And because of that profound connection, she says it was lightning. Everything changed in that moment. She ended up founding Animals Asia, from deep connection to completely turning your life around to doing something profound to make life different. For me, it was wolf puppies. I fell completely hopelessly in love with wolf puppies. My life was perfectly happy. I was a happy psychologist, etc. Then I was invited to raise wolf puppies. The connection it made there, I dropped everything. My life has been changed completely ever since then. And the bond that you make is lifetime, which is one of the beautiful things that happened. And that was for me. So from Craig Foster to Sea Change Project, from Jill to in connection to Animals Asia, from me, deep connection to wolves. Is profound. Now, those stories are fairly obvious, but what I want to share with you now are some things that are pretty far out. And I would like to just add to you that I came from a very scientific background. My father was a hardcore scientist. I came from that background, and then I started seeing things that said, wait a minute, there's more than the regular scientific view, way more. See if I can, this will come up. Well, this movie won't come up now.
I don't know if we're back in PowerPoint or we're in PowerPoint.
That's the last video, so that should be the last technical problem. Otherwise, I'll just talk about it. Yay. Fantastic, Anne.
Jill put her hands on Apricot's neck and back, feeling.
So this was a wolf that had gotten distemper to her brain. The vet said there was nothing they could do for her. I loved her, and I just said, what the hell? I'm going to try with somebody who works with human nervous systems. I'm going to see if she can come and help this wolf. This wolf had never met anybody, this person before, never had people's hands on her other than ours. And this is her immediate response to the energy healing of a variation of craniosacral work. She was all twisted up like an epileptic when we started this.
On her way into her nervous system. After a little nervousness, she started to settle in. It was as if she sensed we were trying to help her and felt the healing quality of Jill's hands. She startled with any new movement or sound, attending to her environment for danger signals, but she quickly settled back down.
Good job, sweetie. That's it.
She started to attend more and more to what was happening inside her. To all our amazement, she entered into a deep trance. For 40 minutes, this shy, skittish wolf lay there taking in the healing energy. When Jill felt she had done enough, she pulled her energy back. Apricot woke up and looked a bit disoriented, as if she had been very far away. She looked around, slowly got up, and started to explore the earth. As we sat there, she came back, laid down, and basically asked for more. Jill worked on her for another 20 minutes. When we were finished, it looked like she was thanking her, grateful. Instead of imposing on her system with drugs, Jill had helped her find her own energy to heal herself. The next day, though her neck was still arched, Apricot had a new look in her eye, bright, energetic. There was a bounce in her step. We asked Jill to come again. This time Apricot pulled Jean all the way to the yurt. Because his knees hurt on the floor, we decided to try to put her on a massage table. Again, she settled down quickly in this new environment. A wolf settling in on a massage table. She went into a deep healing trance. And when we were finished, just lay there, breathing deeply, eyes closed for a long time as we watched.
So what happened there? Or a wolf who'd never had anybody handle her, immediately recognized what was happening and absorb it from human beings. And ultimately she healed completely and lived a long, full life. Brief story here. This was a very old wolf who passed away in the garden here. His name was Thunder, where all the other wolves couldn't see or hear him. And we had the vet come to put him to sleep because he was pretty much gone. And the instant the vet gave him the shot, the instant, and his heart stopped, all 30 of our wolves started a grief howl, a beautiful grieving mourning howl. How did they know? They couldn't see him. Huckleberry Bear lost his brother. They lived together for many years, and then he lost his brother. And we had an art student come here during a retreat, and she was drawn to him and sat in front of his enclosure and started to feel incredibly sad and started to have tears streaming down her face. And she said, "This is weird." And then she heard, sort of image-wise in her head, "I miss my brother." And she said, "This is really weird because I don't have a brother." And then she asked us that night, "Did Huckleberry have a brother?" She didn't know. And we said, "Yes." What does it mean that a bear could share his grief across species with a human being who was just sitting there open? What is the profundity of that? Teton Totem, one of our grizzly bears, became paralyzed. Again, I couldn't stand the idea of putting him down. It was impossible. I called Western Medicine, couldn't do anything. I called a friend of mine, Penelope Smith, who used to do medical intuitive work and communicates with animals. And she said, "Let me see what I can do." And she communicated with him long distance, felt her way. This is what she told me. We can discuss more details later. I'm simply sharing what happened. And she said she could, with his permission, enter into his body and feel her way down his spine till she could feel a place in the bottom of his spine that was compressed and a disc was out. And she gave him the idea and showed him how he might be able to move it. All I can tell you is the next day, he dragged himself over to his pool and dropped his right hind leg in it and started to move it. And a few days later, he was moving a little more and a little more. She kept working with him long distance. And in a couple of months, he was walking. And he's been walking ever since. However we want to explain that, coincidence, whatever, I'm happy to go into detail more, but we're a little late with time. Windwalker was a magnificent cougar who you would not want to meet in the wild. But as he aged and as people started to connect with him, he changed. And he changed profoundly. He changed to a point where people could surround him and he would be purring and he'd welcome people. And the story's too long to share here, but some people said they felt him calling and that he tried to stay alive the last year when he was supposed to not live anymore because he still wanted to meet more people. And here he's responding because he was paralyzed in his old age, responding to the same kind of energy work as Apricot. And you see the same look in his eye as you see with Apricot. So as I said, I had a scientist father, but then I had this wolf who was starting to heal. And then I had this bear that was communicating telepathically. And then I had this cougar who was responding to energy. There's another wolf who nearly died, who wanted nothing to do with people. She just had a near-death experience on the operating table, and she totally changed, wanting to greet people. Another beautiful long story. There's this tremendous, this is our two bison accepting Reiki healing. So the world just started to open for me. And then I began to understand the profound reciprocity that's possible between us and other animals. This was a little three-legged deer. My partner Jean and that same deer. You can almost feel, if we had more time, you could feel the energy that flows between them. Me and Pimpernel Coyote, Jean and Miss Clover the badger, and yes, he still has his nose. So there's this beautiful reciprocity that's available when we start to tune in. And it's not just this beautiful stuff, there's also a tremendous sense of fun. That's Tanaka the wolf, who decided to climb up on John's head. He was a little surprised. There's tremendous joy that the animals get. There's a sense of joy and celebration and just the utter joy of being alive. There's intense individuality. There's two coyotes, Skitter and Fairy Tale, a brother and a sister. He loved blueberries. She would urinate on them. Every animal is entirely different when we get to know them. So one of the things I began to wonder is, and I don't wonder it anymore, is individuality and individual expression a unique form, not a unique form, a universal form of all life and perhaps in the universe. Individuality and what I live with, and I don't have time to tell you that now, but the enormous intelligence and the various intelligences and the beauty of living with all these different intelligences, how that widens your own perspective. So from my point of view, once you make a really deep connection, it's possible to see things really differently. It's necessary for us to make a fundamental 180-degree flip in the way we create the systems we use to serve our needs. 180-degree total reversal of how we're doing things now, based on mindfulness and carefully evaluating need versus want, on what we give meaning to. What do we actually give real meaning and weight to? Is it to having a car? Is it to having a dog? Is it to preserve? What is it that we really value? And that, to me, we need a 180-degree flip worldwide and make decisions while immersed in the warm energy of connection with other living beings. I'm working on right now, each month I'm doing a blog. Will end up being a course with what I'm calling Reconnection Ecology. And the first section of it is, how do we reconnect really, really deeply? How do we all help ourselves? All of us need it. How do we help ourselves reconnect? And to have discussions about that. Then how do we learn how to trust those reconnections? How do we learn to trust what Craig had, what I did with the bears and the wolves, and what I suspect many of you have had, a deep, profound relationship, even if it's a moment somewhere, and to help us value it. Again, do that flip. Well, wait a minute, this is what's real. This is what counts. This is what we need to live our lives on and make our decisions based on. So how do we trust it? How do we support one another to trust these deep experiences almost all of us have had? And those of us who haven't, how can we help the rest of us have them? And then to act on that. A friend of mine, Anne London, this is a drawing she made of two of our wolves, Hope and Promise. And you can see the connection she has in her exquisite art. When she was 6, she was sitting in the back of a car and she had some birds on a wire, and she could feel the wire in her hands. She started to make a connection and she trusted it. And she became this incredible wildlife artist. And also has started a school in Africa where she gave kids who never had pencil and paper before or art lessons and taught them how to begin to draw. This is a sample of how to see the animals around them. So from her 6-year-old experience to becoming an artist, to caring enough to become a superb craftsperson and to share it with kids in Africa. So fundamental questions I have is, how do we help ourselves change? How do we take this incredible brain we've been given? Somebody said to me, are you going to tell Huckleberry's story again? And I said, yes. Every single time I hear it, it goes deeper in my mind and deeper, and the implications go deeper. And that's the way we learn as humans. We have to experience it and re-experience it. It's why the reconnection ecology and supporting one another is so important. That's one of the ways we learn. And from my understanding of our evolutionary development and brain physiology, this forebrain is the weakest part of us. That's where we make decisions and understand consequences, and the connections aren't always that good to the beginning, this part of our brain, which is the emotional. How do we strengthen the forebrain so that we can understand consequences more and manage our emotions more? My feeling is that we evolved so fast that we're somewhat unbalanced, and it's our job now to help balance ourselves. And how do we do that? Brother David's Gratitude Network, and gratitude is one beautiful way to begin to balance our brains away from getting so lost in our own needs and so lost in ourselves. It's such a tragedy for us how we can get lost in ourselves instead of seeing the larger picture and the beauty and how profoundly connected we are. So this is how I see things. A child crawls towards a puppy, inexorably drawn, and the puppy responds. And we go to the forest for solace, sensing the peace that resonates from a harmonious community of life forms, and we receive it. Life recognizes life in all its many forms. Life exalts in life. Connecting with life, any life form, creates a glow. In that connection, energy flows and we're healed. This is our natural inheritance, what we instinctively know and helps us thrive. This is what we've been torn from as we live in an increasingly soulless, frantic, man-made world, and what we can and must return to. And it's really quite simple, actually, if we come from that place of connection. Not easy, but simple if we reconnect. It's possible, it's essential, and it's joyous. Another little bit of hope. Many of you probably know this, but about 2,500 years ago, human consciousness made this huge leap forward. Someone called it the Axial Age, where all the great world religions arose essentially simultaneously all around the world. Karl Jasper, the philosopher, writes, "The spiritual foundations of humanity were laid simultaneously and independently in China, India, Persia, Judea, and Greece. And these are the foundations upon which humanity still subsists today." And I would add to that, we're at the brink of another major human evolutionary leap. We're at a stage of great, it's all, not minimizing all the terrible things, but we have the great good fortune and excitement and responsibility at being alive at the time of another great possible leap forward. You can feel it with an increasing sense of understanding, of interconnection, and groups springing up all over the world doing really, really good work. So another great leap forward based on scientific and spiritual insights of the interconnectedness of all life and its innate intelligence, creativity, and sentience. What an opportunity to forge a new way of living on our earth. I see us as a glorious cosmic experiment, and the question is, how can we help ourselves be successful? I don't know if my time is up or not, Miriam, is it?
Oh, you're so inspiring. Please come slowly to an end, but keep that energy. That's just wonderful.
This is one of our bison, and I always call this ancient wisdom in a bison eye. That's Bluebell. She's got sides to her that aren't spiritual, mind you, because animals are whole-bodied creatures. The thing I wanted to mention to you about the deer in the pictures, that little deer was three-legged. He was found in the side of the road with his umbilical cord still attached, brought to us. He never knew anything other than humans. And so humans became his herd. And when people would come up, he was the first animal you would see, they would stop short and they would be absolutely glued. And you'd begin to see what I can only describe as a glow that flowed between him and the people. And my interpretation was that he was inviting us to join his herd because they're herd animals and we were his herd. And people just responded. And then I also wondered, is that what it's like to be in a herd and a herd heart? How incredible. And Bluebell, many stories about Bluebell. This is just two of our wolves to show how profoundly, beautifully connected they are. And then what if the earth is lonely for us? And what if we're lonely for the earth and don't really realize it and it's part of the source of our discomfort and are desperately seeking something somewhere? And what if instead of wanting to be saved, the earth wants to be loved? And in loving her, by acting through love, we automatically save her. So those are my thoughts. I have more pictures, but I suspect my time is up.
We still have you with us and we want you with us for interaction, Susan. Thank you so much. And you're welcome to unshare your screen. Thank you so much, Susan. And we're aware you bring in so much the technical part. We can live with that because there's such a gift behind that, and that's not easy to be conveyed. But I'd like to invite all of you to feel inside, because I felt joy. I felt that courageous energy, and really something that is not so much in the mind. I think it can be felt and it's deeper down in the belly in my case. So maybe just feel for yourself, hearing those words of reverence and our connection with, and like that portal to mystery or to sacredness of life itself. Is there anything you want to say at the very end here, Susan? Because I'll invite us into dialogue rooms to really stay with this energy that you have invited us into.
I think your original suggestion when we talked about having people stay with what's alive in them, because that's the essence of Cortona, right?
Yes.
What's truly alive and creative in you. I have a couple of questions in my mind which I can share, but I think that should be first. And one of the questions is, how can we help each other change our brain? How can we help each other connect? And once we connect, how can we help ourselves stay there and keep it and integrate it into how we live? Because what happens, we're often inspired and then it disappears. Those are my questions. And how do we help ourselves make that 180-degree flip? Not a half, begging your pardon, but a half-assed flip, a real flip. So we don't do partial stuff. It's a real flip. And not only is that essential, it's also joyous and exciting to reimagine from the bottom up. Those are my thoughts.
Yes, that's inspiring for all of us to move into small groups so we can ponder on those questions with that aliveness of what is being felt in you right now. And how we do that is that you receive, maybe some of you are familiar, an invitation to join a breakout room. We'll create, thanks to Matteo, breakout rooms of 4 people. So 4 people in a room during a good 15 minutes. We'll let you know when the time ends, and you can also take care of time. The invitation is briefly present yourselves, maybe in relation to Cortona, and then that question, what is alive in you right now? And look, whether you can take even time to hear each other, the listening part that Susan conveys with her work to listen deeply. We can transport it into our small dialogues and come up at the very end with a question that will be shared then in the plenary afterwards. So decide on one person who can be the speaker, and at the end, please type that question into the chat, naming the speaker. We can come back to that in the plenary later on. So you'll have 15 minutes and then a countdown of 2 minutes, so it will be 17, to thank each other. And we'll meet each other again here in the main room. When you come back, know that we'll have a breather by another musical piece, surprise. And so after enjoying again, the word joy came up, there'll be the plenary to bring back questions from your small groups to Susan and be in interaction. So please accept your breakout room invitation and know this will bring you back automatically at the very end. You don't need to do anything. Just coming back to our main room here. Please enjoy, and please also share that question in the chat so we can use it later on. Matteo, be so kind and invite us into small breakout rooms while Susan stays in the main room. Enjoy. Just takes a moment, so we are patient enough here.
Okay.
Yes, so
Somebody start.
we can start, those of us in the main room now. So you see who's there. Maybe you can go that way, Susan, that we're just aware that we have those good 17 minutes with each other. We all take care of time. That whoever has a question can simply address it to Susan and we'll go with the flow. And I'll remind us of time, like 2 minutes ahead, so we can come to an end. So thank you again for all of you being here. Maybe briefly say who you are and what you work in and your relationship is here.
Luigi. And Susan, there is a lot of interest now in modern medicine on the power of mind, on the health, or wanted to be better. And I was astonished by seeing that animals feel the mind of the person close to them humans who want them to be better, and animals reacting to them. Do you agree with this picture that there is the transmission of good mind from human to animal, so that the power of mind has this intersubjective effect of healing?
Yes, I would just modify that a bit to say it's mind-heart. So it's the energy and the intent of the mind, but mixed with the heart wisdom and the heart energy that the animals pick up on, not the intellectual abstract part of our mind, but the other part of our mind. And yes, I do think they pick up on it.
Susan, this is Fritjof. I think when Luigi uses the word mind, he includes that because, you know, we have a systemic conception of life that we have developed where cognition, the process of knowing, or mind in the human realm, includes especially emotions and perception and behavior. All of this is included. It's really the process of life's self-organization. So when we say mind, we don't just mean the rational mind.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Then my answer is yes. I forget the people I'm speaking with. I was talking to ordinary thinking.
Yeah,
So,
and may I just add for a second that you started out by saying your father was a scientist, but you feel there's much more than science to life, and I completely agree with that. But we also have some good news from science that there's now a conception of life which opens the door to talk about the experiences you shared.
I should have said he was a 20th century scientist. From that frame of reference. The ending I talk now about is the incredible awareness because of science and spirituality coming together now. That's why I think we're such an incredibly exciting time.
Absolutely, yes.
Hi, Stella here. Susan, I was brought up in an environment where my parents introduced me and my sisters to nature, love to animals. So I am open and sensitive from the beginning to that. And whether the animal has beautiful eyes like a doe or a cow, or no eyes at all that you can see. So being mindful of creatures regardless of their aesthetic. But people who live in the city, the only wildlife that they are exposed to, and depending on in which area of the world they live, it may be cockroaches or birds and not much else. So there is really a point in how do we get the wildlife close to the people where wildlife is not part of that environment, and how can we get the spark in those children and then adults?
The thing is that life is everywhere, and the connection with life, it doesn't make any difference in my opinion. I have the good fortune to have these animals, but you can make it with a plant, you can make it with a goldfish, you can make it with any living thing. If what I'm saying is true, then life is got its essence expressed in any living thing, and we can connect through that. So I see it completely possible to do it in a city and in an apartment. It's once you have an idea that it's possible, then the doors begin to open, and you don't need the drama of a bear or a wolf at all. I mean, if you cut open a leaf, inside a leaf is an entire universe. There's fungi and bacteria and protozoa, all inside one little leaf. I mean, the miracle is everywhere.
I could recommend a book about plants in this connection. It's called The Revolutionary Intelligence of Plants. And the author is Stefano Mancuso, a botanist at the University of Florence. And he shows just in an amazing way how plants act and respond and do all kinds of things that we would never imagine.
Yeah.
Can you write it in the chat, Fritjof, please, so that we can share it with the other participants afterwards?
Okay.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, there is also a negative influence of mankind on animals. And let me just tell a horrible episode I've seen yesterday in the center of Rome, Via del Governo Vecchio, Piazza Navona, where one seagull, un gabbiano, attacked a pigeon and killed him and devoured him in the middle of the street, in the complete indifference of all other people who were passing by and not caring about. And, you know, simply seagulls are hungry. They need to eat, also to bring food to their children. But there is no doubt that these seagull killing pigeons, it's really a very bad picture of our times as far as animals' behavior is concerned. I was very impressed by this view.
The animals are being driven to extremes too, because
yeah.
Who else would like to share?
I can go. I just really appreciate being in the presence. This is Marissa. I got to attend Cortona Week in Todi in 2019, and I still have, I'm still steeping in all the beautiful treasures of wisdom. And Susan, I remember your presentation then and again. And I think what you mentioned is so beautiful, you know, to love the earth can be saving her, you know, and to see that the needs of the earth are not separate from our own. And I wonder what it will take to keep remembering that when we have industrialization and buildings and this desire to have success on a material realm. How can we reconcile that version of success with success for the earth and what the earth needs to thrive? And is that possible to do? I don't know.
I have no idea if it's possible. I only know, as Luigi says, that it's good to have big ideas and big visions and try. There's no point in trying to figure out if it's possible or not, just to do it. And the idea of success, industrialization, success, most people aren't happy. Industrialization doesn't bring happiness. So that's what I mean about a 180-degree flip of what we value and how badly we've been taught, because little babies don't want industrialization. They want to connect with life. So how do we re-educate ourselves? How do we support one another in education systems and in formats like this? Because people are yearning for this. People recognize that when it's shown, most people do, some people are pretty sealed off. But most people recognize it. So how can we find that tipping point of, what is it, 10% of people, whatever the tipping point thing is, to work with trying to change that, so we change the energy of overall how we're interacting, and to not get lost in the small picture and in the immediate stuff of what's happened to the water. Every one of it is critically important, the water, the plastic, all of it's critically important, but you can't make good decisions if we don't think systemically and see the whole picture. And from that frame of reference, make decisions about how to deal with each of these individual things as well.
Susan, can you really believe that people can be improved?
Yeah, I do.
And that's very good to hear.
Among other things, there are movements that are happening around the world of people recognizing and doing the best they can. The tremendous change in awareness of mindfulness, for example, that was like a joke in the West 10, 15 years ago. Buddhism is becoming very popular. I think it's a lot of work. So it's not people can be changed. Can we change ourselves? Can we change our brain? Can we change the biological wiring of attending to ourselves and greed and jealousy? It's not even changing it so much as just overriding it by developing more of our forebrains. The best way I know personally is that mindfulness actually starts changing the connections in the brain within 8 weeks. But it does require discipline. That's the question in my mind. Not that it's not possible. Do we have the will and the discipline? And can we help
you,
people?
Susan.
Yeah.
I think that's more what I was asking, because yeah, it is possible, but how do we get people to keep, like you were saying, to keep that inspiration? Because people go on a trip and go outside and are like, wow, nature's beautiful. And then they go back home on their computer and are like buying stuff on Amazon, you know? And so how do we connect those dots? But I have a book near me, Braiding Sweetgrass, that I feel like really aligns with what you're saying. And I think that could be required curriculum for people.
It's a wonderful book. But one of the difficulties is you are saying people as if you're not a people. And the minute we say people, we're separating ourselves from them. Well, if we could only fix people, but we also have to fix ourselves because we're a people. So I think it's very helpful to use the word help us all change ourselves and help each other rather than fixing people. And that coming from an entirely different place, it works better.
Yeah.
And what I also feel, Susan, in that regard is it's really inviting awe and reverence in as felt experiences, felt emotions, because you speak about love and a connection, felt relation. You mentioned joy a lot. So joy is an emotion also in your body that allows for action, different than numbing. And I just remember, like Susan Simard, when just learning about trees underground, and there are more scientists around that, but learning how much intelligence is in there. There too, I feel this should be curriculum, as Marisa has said, for the children. Children feel if they are out, if we let them be out and let them wildly and freely be out. Not many have that chance. But these are very inspiring impulses to feel. There's so much there. We see so little. The picture is so large and so complex and so interconnected. And I think if we see that and we're open for that and train ourselves in that sharing between science and those who, I don't know, who do different works, maybe in artistic work, even the music that we heard before, to really go a little layer deeper and sense and then feel, oh, I want to act on that because I love what I deeply feel, that I love life.
Mm-hmm.
I think going back to what you said, Marisa, too, that's why I was emphasizing, and I showed the things in the beginning of deep connection. If you have a deep connection like Craig had with the octopus, like I had with the wolves, it comes naturally. You naturally have a deep sense of ethics, a sense of hope, a sense of wanting to work for it. So the question for me is, how do we help, not people, us, make deep connections? How can we help with that? And it can be with a caterpillar in a tree, in a park, in a city, because it's all an expression, a universal expression of life.
Yeah, Susan, we go back to the other side, that we need not one, not two, but 100 or 1,000 Cortona a week.
Yes.
10,000.
Yes. Yes. And I'm going to do everything I can to help make that possible. And I want 100,000 earth fires around the world too, connected with Cortona.
Susan, can I share and ask what's literally on my heart right now is the actual experience of that flip in a direct encounter with nature. I remember very, very vividly in 2019, just a couple of weeks after Todi Week, I was in Seattle, and my heart's beating really fast right now. There was a conversation with a tree that I could tell stories about how that might be, but it was something entirely different and felt like it completely changed my life. The difficulty is to sustain that connection as a living experience, not as a story, because then even the story can be precious. And sometimes when I share it, and I share it deeply, then it can come alive again. And yet it's not the same as going there. And even as simple as you say, I mean, now I have plants in my room, so maybe I can do it easier than thinking I have to go out to the forest where it seems easier. But to actually do this, not just think or talk about it, but I mean, the only thing that makes a difference is to go right into the experience.
Yeah, that's the trick. That's what we need. That's what we have to help each other do rather than go off into distractions and abstractions. As a culture, as a species, to the best we can. At the very least, if we end up not making it, more of us will have had a good, rich life.
Fritjof, last time you mentioned your educational project of having the garden and then children learning about many subjects through the garden. Do you, it's not that you keep track, but do you have an idea of what kind of citizens these children turn out to be? Do they sustain their amazement and their involvement in the garden project?
Yes, absolutely. We have many stories of these school children then going to university, and when they graduate, you know, becoming professionals in areas that are ecologically meaningful and meaningful in terms of life. So that's absolutely true. And you know, I know this also from my own personal experience. I grew up on a farm, and I spent the first 10 years of my life very closely with nature. This was during World War II and right after the war, when you know, society had broken down pretty much in Austria, and the farm was completely self-sufficient. And that experience stays with me until today, you know, for 60, 70 years. And so I know that an experience of nature in childhood will stay with you your whole life.
And one profound experience will stay with you for your whole life. When I was 7 years old or so, I was lying on a beach, and suddenly it felt like something was, I don't know what the right word is, I felt this entire profound connection with the entire universe. I was 7 years old, I didn't know anything. Whether it was grace or blessing or just an internal connection, I don't know. But those few seconds have influenced the rest of my life.
Yeah. Those of you who are in touch with me by email will know that my email address begins with Afra, A-F-R-A. And I can tell you that that's the name of the horse we had on the farm.
Mm.
So another proof that that stays with you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We're coming to an end. I think people will come back, but until they do so, if there's another question.
Susan, do you have an educational component in Earthfire? Do you work with children in any way, or are you planning to?
We hope to. There are insurance issues having children with bears and wolves.
Yes.
But we will definitely be doing online things, and as we restructure the place, yes, we will. We also hold retreats, weekend retreats, week-long retreats, in terms of education, in addition to what we do online.
Oh, great.
And I'm working on a book which I think is a final draft of all these stories in great detail. Hopefully,
wonderful.
And all these pictures and stuff. It's called Whispered Invitations from the Wild.
Right, great.
Wolfgang, I loved your heartfelt sharing, and it's exactly where we need to be and what we need to do. How do we hold on to it and integrate it? And again, how do we support one another in this?
Yes.
Thanks.
The support piece is important, Susan, right? The community and the support piece. It needs everybody in there.
We can't do it by ourselves, no matter how rich our experience is.
Yes.
We have to help each other.
Yes.
And then use that to change how we live on the earth.
And everybody has actively to leave the breakout group.
Yes, you'll be coming in. You can wait till the end or just come in. So welcoming some of you back already. Beautiful that they're coming.
Hi, Susan.
Hi. How do I get back to seeing everybody?
Yeah, yes, it's wonderful, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're waiting for everybody coming back.
It's so great when you said the earth doesn't need to be, healed, but to be loved. That really touched us.
Yeah, thank you to all for being back here. I hope you had a good, also felt personal experience in the small groups. We want to move into the main plenary, but we'll share a little piece which gives us all a breather, another beautiful breather in between. So take another 2 minutes to listen to vibration and let it speak to you inside. Matthias, please share. Jörg, before we listen to the music, please share a few very brief words about why this piece now. And then Matteo will have it play.
This piece of music I played often in Cortona. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I played very often in Cortona, and everybody knows it. It's a piece by Johann Sebastian Bach. And for me, it's an expression of the nature in us. Their music tunes us to the voices and the vibrations of nature in us. Yeah, and this is exactly what Bach had in mind. And he was a genius. And in all pieces of Bach, it is about our living soul and the living system in us. Yeah, you can see this scientifically as a kind of system theory of music, but also from the psychological side, it's about nature in us. Yeah, and now when we hear this very known a piece of music, try to fall into these vibrations and resonances and relax. Mm-hmm. This is the reason. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A lot of memories, a lot of joy in the air. Yeah, so there's time now for our plenary, and yeah, letting these sounds maybe be brought in with your questions, and maybe also this energy into whatever you want to ask to Susan. And we've invited you to write into the chat. Please continue doing so we can see the question from your group. And you can also unmute then, but we'll go by question. So I'll start with one. Cynthia, would you be well ready to read your question to Susan? You can unmute yourself.
Hi, Susan.
Hi.
Our question from the three of us here was, what practical steps can we take in our local communities to reinvigorate our relationship
with nature
and the planet?
I think one thing is to get together in nature in small groups and meditate together and see what answers come up. I hesitate to answer that kind of thing, because then when you say, what steps can we take? On the one hand, it's really important to answer. On the other hand, it's important for it also to come from within us, each of us, than be told what to do or given another list of things to do, recycle or whatever it is. So the best I can say is to join a sense of community, maybe perhaps around a campfire, and see what comes up. And then the practical steps are going to vary from community to community, country to country. And ideally, if we're tuning in to something greater, it's going to sort of echo and reverberate and supplement what's happening around the world.
Okay, thanks.
I think Susan, one thing that we brought up in our discussion was, buying local produce, for example.
Oh yeah. Yes, but there you are, you see. I didn't have to say that. You came up with that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Naveen, do you want to ask your question?
Oh, I think it's very similar to what was asked earlier. But then there was another question about maintaining that balance between nature, the wilderness, the wild, versus, the mental construct of urban city life in which we all are embedded, most of us, talking to you over Zoom. We do not have the luxury of being at the Earthfire Institute. So, creating a balance between nature, wilderness, and city, social, urban context. So what are your thoughts about that, about creating that balance there?
It's an interesting question. There's an organization that started talking about wildlife corridors. And we're located in one here. That's one of the reasons I moved here, because it's so incredibly vibrant, because with wildlife corridors, life still can flow and it isn't blocked off. But their dream, which I love, thinking big, is to interweave wildlife corridors throughout all the continents with human habitation. And for us to begin to learn how to live with, not separate out, because that doesn't work. Indigenous peoples knew how to live with. Now we've got to find a new way because there's so many of us. But to learn to live with other animals, not keep them separate as alien, because that's not been working. And to rethink about urban planning, if you will, something practical. How can we build differently? How can we still have what we need as humans, a wonderful culture and interaction, but not separate from nature, not in cities where there's nothing alive other than humans in it. That's my first thought.
I mean, right here, I have a pretty large urban plot, and we are, kind of trying to regenerate the soil, and make things more edible. And soon we have started to notice that we are opening up an invitation for the wild to come in.
Exactly.
But again, we have a lot of visitors, but the problem is that people around us do not know how to deal with these visitors, right? We do not have a mindset to deal with the wildlife that we have invited.
So that's your job.
Yeah.
Change the mindset. I mean, wonderful things are happening in cities with rooftop gardens and small community gardens with it. So nature is so alive and vibrant and regenerative if we give it a chance. And I shouldn't say nature because nature's not separate from us. It's an absurd statement, but I don't know what other words to use. A life will come back. And again, how do we learn to live with? So you just gave yourself the job.
Thank you so much, Noreen. Thank you, Susan. There's another question, and some questions are quite similar, Susan. So maybe Francesco, if you want to ask your question, and Rocco, then you can see what they want to add to that. And then we'll come to calmly to a close here because we have another musical piece before we end on time. Francesco, please.
So, Susan, our kind of question, we discussed several things in the group, but one concept really that I want to bring to the table is this systemic transformation, right? So you can argue that humanity has been transformed by technology, and that transformation has changed our relation with nature and with animals and our relation with the planet in general, no? But this relation has also had many advantages for the one species we belong to, and it's not going to be easy to give up on those advantages. So I think worldwide, people are going to be interested in your answer of how we can transform our society and technology to move towards a more sustainable equilibrium between what humanity is asking for us to protect humans and how we interact with nature. And if there is a sustainable formula that works for all of humanity, because on one side, I'm incredibly impressed by your experience, right? Your life choice of living in that environment, nature, and protecting animals. But I don't think it's a sustainable choice for all your humanity, right? Mm-hmm. So how can you transform your personal experience in something that can influence our choices as a species, as humans? How do we move forward in this relation with nature? Do you have suggestions, practical indications that you have been? I mean, you're also a scientist, so.
My first thing is that ecologists, having done research, basically came up with a line that nature needs half. Nature needs half of each ecosystem in order to keep it sustainable long term. So one thing is to begin to think in terms of planning that we preserve or help nature. You don't have to help so much nature regenerate itself, it will on its own, but to plan as we build around the globe to leave nature half in each ecosystem. That's one thing. Another thing, you and I had talked about this briefly before, I think. I don't think we have to give up much. I think we have to reorient. And we'd be very happy with, quote, not what we're giving up, but we're exchanging it for. Instead of living in the cities we have now, planning our cities quite differently. We're not giving anything up, we're exchanging something much better. And with respect to technology, as long as we keep ourselves rooted in who we actually are as human animals, as beings on the earth, in systems, earth systems, as long as we ourselves are keep rooted in that and that profound connection, we will use technology, this is ideal, but we would use technology in a deeply ethical way. We would consider the impacts on other living beings and, of course, in the end, on us. And that deep connection I was talking about, we automatically consider it, and we automatically not just behave in a deeply ethical way, but we understand to the extent we can foresee things, consequences of things we do, we try to take them into consideration when we start to make those decisions. I don't see a conflict between them as long as we don't separate our emotions and heart from our brain.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take too much time, but I have a follow-up because I think this idea of technology in relation with nature is kind of important for humanity, no? So technology is human-centric. I mean, the way we design technology is to interact with the human limits. We build planes because we cannot fly. We build microscopes because we cannot see very small objects. All the technology is an extension of this anthropocentric need. So all the things we have designed so far, they've been designed to support humanity. Do you think that technology should be transformed in something that sees the bigger picture, or simply that technology has to, the impact has to be minimized, as you say, this 50% kind of a quota, you know, consuming half? Actually, it's the very term of sustainability. I don't know the German word, I can't pronounce it, but it's on not consuming more than the forest can produce. I think it's a German term that is talking about forestry. So
I don't think we need to give up much, as I said. It's a matter of how we use it and how we think about it, and understanding the impacts of what we're doing.
Yes.
And I don't think we're going to give it up. We're not going to. So we might as well learn how to use it in a good way.
I agree.
Thank you so much, Francesco. Thank you, Susan. We are slowly approaching the end. We started a little late, so as we span around the globe, I ask you for a little over half the hour, so we can add the musical piece. Just very quickly, Rocco, because I mentioned you, is there something very quickly that you want to add?
No, essentially, I think I take the chance to thank Susan. No, we have pretty much was answered by the previous question. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Rocco. Claire, because you've been writing in the chat, please very briefly. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, there now it's unmuted. Yeah, first our group question, and this kind of, I think, feeds into the last discussion. How do we do this? How do we transform society? And one comment on that is that we transform it to make this kind of a transference, even if we aren't giving up much, something that individuals value. At the individual level, I am willing to give up all kinds of things. And Susan given up, you know, all kinds of things in exchange for something that's more valuable. And I think that that happens on an individual level. And that leads into our group's question. And that was, once someone has begun this journey or even virtually completed this 180-degree flip, okay, I have an extreme connection with animals, and I have had all my life and mostly repressed it. And now I've embraced it much more since I've retired from being a lawyer, but I've embraced it much more. And I know that I can communicate telepathically with animals. I know I can do a laying on of hands. And it's not because I'm particularly trained. It's because I particularly needed to do it at the time. But I'm alone. I live in one of the most liberal states in the United States, rural, open to a lot of environmental issues. You know, I mean, just very good in that arena, not big cities, but I'm still alone because people don't do what I do. Not that people can't, they just don't. I mean, they haven't seen in themselves that they can do that yet. So how do we support each other as we are making this transition?
Thank you for that beautiful question, Claire.
May I say something? I would like to hear what Renuka would say to this.
We will add that too, yes. Claire, that's a very important question, and Susan can address that too, that part of being alone, because something many of us feel. And Renuka, please, then very quickly, you've written in the chat, it's such an important question. Maybe you can briefly come also unmute. Susan, please.
So where I live, I am alone. I live in a very small community that is extremely conservative. They want to be shooting all the animals we have, not only here, but all around us. They just voted to kill all the wolves in the state.
Oh, geez.
And this goes on all the time. So I am energetically quite alone, other than a few people here. but we're part of something so much larger, and how to connect with that. Like, this is one way, Cortona is one way of doing it. You're not the least bit alone, in the sense that there are a whole bunch of people around the world who want to do what you do. And there are even more people around the world who have had your experience of having that profound connection and then closing it down. And there is a slow movement all around the world of beginning to allow people to trust that. If you want to, anytime, email me, talk to me, and then the two of us can be less alone.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. Important question. Renuka and Susan, please.
Renuka.
Renuka, do you want to unmute and talk to your question?
Well,
So
we
maybe
can get a question just to be.
we can read that question, Susan.
She's,
Renuka is, I'm reading it. Renuka is saying, it is ironic that on the one hand, human beings are connecting with all forms of life. And on the other hand, human beings are unable to reach out to people from different religions, regions, classes, race, and castes.
It ultimately comes from the same place. The deep connection comes from the same place, regardless of all of that. So if we connect to animals or people well, it's in a good direction of coming from that place.
Yeah.
Because it is all life. It includes all people, all types of people, all. And that's what you do with compassion and with gratitude. And the Buddhist sense of all life. It's that's where we have to work. And, as Luigi asked, can we do it? I definitely believe we can. I think we have the brain structure and the capacities. The only question is, will we? And that's our job.
With that very inviting question, we'll come to an end of the plenary. Thanking you so much, Susan. Thanking you all for your questions, and also for your sharing in the small groups and connecting. And hopefully this is still going further when we leave this space, that you think about these questions, you exchange among each other about them and reach out to each other. It's important to do so. And we were very gifted to receive that inspiration of you, Susan, from a place not many of us, probably none of us, has been to such a long time, so deeply involved, and then deciding to act in a way as you do, to share and to make it be seen. That's in the second step. Wouldn't work without. Thank you so much for that. The little we can thank you here. Yes, Luigi, I want to invite you for this third Pearl in this year to speak some closing remarks. Just on the practical level, know that the recording will be available on the Cortona Friends Facebook site and the website Cortona Friends. There'll be a next Pearl number 4 with Roshi John Halifax in a month to go. You'll find information on the Cortona Friends org website. Luigi, please speak the closing words. I just want to thank all of you, and know that after Luigi's words, again, we'll dive into feeling, into vibration, which will be music shared by Tony, and that's our final ending piece. Luigi, please. And until Luigi speaks, maybe you can briefly say goodbye to Susan, because you are the main speaker here today. Luigi, are you with us?
While we're waiting for Luigi, I only want to say what an honor it is to speak to something as exquisite and important as Luigi founded Cortona Friends. It's just an honor to be part of it.
He's lost the connection, Luigi.
I think he's offline, Miriam.
Yes, I'm just seeing that. So Stella, do you want to speak some final words? Matteo, I invite you in to close from the Cortona Friends side, because you've been holding all this technically so beautifully. And I thank to all the team and all the many little steps to get this together. All of you being here, making time today. Matteo.
Yes, so it was beautiful 1.5 hours. I hope everything worked more or less fine and everyone enjoyed, and we are looking forward to seeing you in 1 month again. And thank you, Susan, and thank you everyone that helped to realize this pearl. And I think we can give the word to Tony, that will close the pearl with a beautiful piece of live music. Tony.
Yes, great to be here with you in this moment of time. Thank you again, Susan. It was very touching to follow your representation. There are some people who like to put this last year in the realm of memory. I hope we come out soon out. عمر الزمان ما كان أوله مثل آخره. It's the beginning and the end of time were never the same. You hold it here, you catch it there. Color it in any color you want. Red, green, blue, and yellow. The beginning and the end of time are not the same. الزمن مكان أول الزمن مكان أول ما كان أول مثل آخر ما كان أول مثل آخر لما بدك لما بدك لا وينه لما بدك لا وينه لونه بالاحمر لونه بالاخضر بالاصفر بالازرق لونه لونه بالاحمر لونه بالاخضر بالاصفر بالازرق لونه لونه بالاحمر لونه بالاخضر بالاصفر بالازرق لونه بالبني لونه بالبني لونه بالبني 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 لونه الزمان مكان أوله مثل آخره لونه بالأحمر لونه بالأخضر بالأصفر بالأزرق لونه لونه بالأحمر لونه بالأخضر بالأصفر بالأزرق لونه Ciao. Wish you all the best, all of you.
Thank you for beautiful music to all of you. Thank you all for your inspiration to be and to share and to listen and to connect. You're welcome to unmute and say goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Well done.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Miriam.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't hear anybody in my group. There was no interaction at all. I don't know what happened.
I'm so
Anyway.
sorry to hear.
No, it's okay, but next
I
time
would have wished you to connect.
we won't have that technical difficulty.
Sorry for that. Great that you are here and still stayed in Renuka.
Yes.
Appreciate
Nice
you
to
being
see
here.
you all. Yeah, take care. Thank you,
Send it.
Tony.
Stella and everybody, goodbye. Matteo.
Bye.
Sending good wishes to India, Renuka, and to
Antonio.
all
Yes.
there.
Yes, thank
Irene.
you.
Mm.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Susan.
Thank you,
Thanks to
everybody.
all.
Lovely to
Thank you,
see you all.
Susan.